Are you thinking about your future in Independent Bahamas? Wondering how you can achieve your goals? Pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. Join our co-sponsors, DomDev Enterprises and Page Investments, and our friends at Something to Think About. Tell us where you are, what you're thinking about. Join us. Make sure you share. And tell everybody that we are live. We'll be right back.
Something to Think About with Dale. Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles.
What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. And what we imagine, we can achieve. Let's change the narrative 242. So this evening we have my youngest blood with me. He's here with us by surprise in the Bahama land, something that I didn't expect, and we didn't know what we wanted to do. So I invited him onto the show. Dom is, oh, I see what happened in here. Boom. Sorry about that. Yes, got him now. Welcome, Dom. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I can't hear you a little bit there, but we could probably raise that up a little bit. Yes. So you're my youngest son, you're an artist, you're an equestrian, provocative thinker, passionate, shared about the wild worlds, natural resources, particularly our animals. Any other things come on online now, which you added to your portfolio?
No, I've just been riding horses and making art as I always have been doing.
Cool. Now, both of you, Devon and yourself, surprised me on Sunday when you popped up and walked into dinner. And you both have spent all my money going through education, exposure, experiences, and all the social events and the like, and become these fine gentlemen that we have, and you're in front of me as one, and so forth. And I'm very proud of you and the things that you are accomplishing and what you are achieving and what you are striving to achieve as you move from strength to strength. And so, in particular, we want to see how you would want to journey, or how you are journeying through all of the countries that you are going to do your exhibits. And that has come about in recent times. And so we want you to highlight to us a little about where you have been exhibiting and some of the places, the unique places, etc., that you have.
Okay, thanks. So this year I had 3 exhibitions in New York at the beginning of the year. One at White Columns in January. The second was at Fortnite Institute in New York in February, and the third one was a solo show at Chapter New York. That ran from March until May. Afterwards, we had 2 screenings in Belgium in May and June. Following that, there was a screening of the film that I make in Basel, Switzerland. And so after Basel, I went to Italy, just shortly outside of Rome, for an exhibition there of painting. And I went on this art tour to look at art in museums through Venice and Florence, Berlin, and Bonn, Germany, just to inspire myself. But I had a show in Hanover, Germany, as well at the Kessner Gesellschaft Museum,
Okay.
and that opened in June as well.
Cool. So all of those would have happened this year.
Right,
When I say
and
this year, this last, since you would have been last on the show, actually.
in the last 6 months. And
6 months.
so this weekend I have a show at Patron Chicago, in Chicago, obviously, and that runs from July 23rd until August 27th. And then there is a show at the MoMA Vienna Museum in September. And so that'll be the last thing for the year.
Okay. Cool. So a lot of persons here might have known you when you grew up in the space, but now might not be familiar with you. But my friends overseas are telling me that you're making a name for yourself, and from the list that you just mentioned, it seems like that is very much so. And so this month we are celebrating our independence, and that was in 1973, July 10th. That's almost 23 years before your time when that was happening. So tell us a little bit about what independence would mean to you growing up.
Well, at the time, independence was seen as enough because you were an independent country, but your ties with Britain were only ceremonial. But since the recent royal visit, an independent country is not the full desire of the people, I suppose.
Cool. So when you say they're not the full desire of the people, you mean because they want a republic, to become a
Right,
republic, or
right.
that? All right, cool. So what are you striving now to achieve when you go to all of these art exhibits and the other things that's happening in your life? You need to touch on some of those for us. Yeah.
Well, with the art exhibits, it's just people reaching out asking to share the work they've connected with or seen, and so it's just accepting invites. But with my solo shows that I am planning over the next year or so, I just want to make a memorial for my horse Taz through the artwork.
Okay, and so you've done some work on Taz already, and they were exhibited already, or you kept them for inventory for the exhibits that are coming up?
The first solo show in the US was at the Green Gallery in Milwaukee in 2019, and that was titled Ode to Taz. And so there was a poetry reading about Taz as well that was in the exhibition. The following year, I had a solo in Vienna at Gallery Lair, and the title was The Solemn and Dignified Burial Befitting My Beloved for All Seasons, which is a chapter from my grandfather's book, George Mackey.
Right.
And in his chapter, he had the solemn and dignified burial befitting a man for all seasons. But since George called everyone my beloved, I changed it to my beloved. So this year in New York, at Chapter New York, I had the exhibition has the same title because the work has the same idea and premise and drive.
Cool. And so when you say you memorialize, and what was that connection between you and Taz? Why all the extra effort?
Well, it's because in reality, a lot of cultures do not have a ritual or a ceremony for animals, and animals are, used industrially, or they're used as pets, and you might have a private connection, but to have a ceremony, I don't think is really a part of the culture, except in Hinduism, where they pray over cows that pass away in the street and so forth. So the art is just my space where I have the agency to have that ceremony that I feel is difficult to do in reality.
Yeah. And so art in general then for you would be an expression of your inward feeling, your attitude, as John C. Maxwell would define attitude, or is it you look at it from some other perspective?
Well, for me, ex- the art is expression. So there are conceptual elements as well because of the context that it's in, but personally and in the paintings especially, they're very expressionist.
Cool, cool, cool. And so when you look at where you are now, well, not physically right now, but whilst you are in the between the United States and all the places you go in Europe and the like, is that ideal for you as the way you want to be, or is there another tier that you want to elevate yourself to?
Well, the horses move between Europe in the summer and Florida in the winter. So animals naturally migrate. So since these animals are domestic, we have to migrate for them throughout the different seasons. So it's just nature that I have to be based in Europe in the summer and Florida in the winter.
Okay, and those two spaces you have found to be the persons to be receptive to your work. You mentioned earlier that people are inviting you to come to the galleries and so forth. How does that work?
Well, it's just people going to exhibitions and seeing the work and then asking your gallery to exhibit your work in their museums or galleries. And then the cycle continues.
Okay, and when you say continues, what do you mean by that? In terms of once you exhibit it, um, it's bought or it's sold, or you take it back, and how does that
Well,
cycle? How help
it's the
people out
same
there
way
understand what's the
as
cycle?
music or films, that if you see a film somewhere or if you listen to a song, you play it again or you watch it again in different settings, or you carry it with you and live with it.
Cool. So, in terms of that cycle happening, is that helping you to build your dreams? You always wanted to be, um, I guess, a mover and shaker, a rainmaker of sorts. I mean, it wasn't your explicit view, but that was the way your mind thought. So, are you able to expand, stretch yourself and the like in the process?
Well, I suppose it allows me to do the things for myself that I might not have had the agency to do when I was a teenager. So having art and horses, or just basically living your life the way you want to, just creates more space to continue uh, to embody your dreams. And it just vibrates, or you just attract more um, spaces for yourself to bloom.
Cool, cool. So, folks out there, if you want to ask any questions or comment on what we're talking about here tonight, do drop a note in the chat and it'll pop up on our screen, and we'll endeavor to address them as we see them. So, Dom, when we look at the whole thing of growing up, you mentioned that you had some goals. Two of the goals that I recall you had was one that you wanted to go to the Olympics and be an equestrian and do horse jumping or dressage. And the other one was that you wanted, I touched on just now, where you wanted to impact the world and make life on this earth better for people and the animals and the whole vibe of movement of spirit and soul, I guess. I could define it that way. Mightn't be the way you define it. But is that are those still your goals?
Well, for animals, yes. But I just do the best I can with the animals that I have and try to give them the life that I believe animals, at least domestic animals, should be able to have.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so, in terms of those two goals, you're still stretching yourself in terms of impacting the making the impact on the world. Those are coming in steps and stones. But in terms of the Olympics and jumping, I know you're still riding. Do you have any aspirations of still going to the Olympics?
Yes, but I think every athlete does, but every athlete also has to find their niche within the sport that they do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so when you look at the two streams, you would become very successful at one, or growing in success in one, and then the other one, you would have got to a point where you would have sort of plateaued. And these are based on the environments that you were able to participate in. What would you say would be the difference in in the two paths to your goals?
The difference between
Your path to the Olympics and your path to being somebody who could impact the world through your art and whatever other avenues you chose.
well, I don't
Would they would you would have had the same support for them? What are the facilities available for both? What was there any difference or the like?
well, with horses, you need owners to buy horses for you so that you can compete and move up each level. And for the ownership of the horses, that need is from when you're a teenager all the way up to the professionals who are at the Olympics or the World Equestrian Games. And the World Equestrian Games is way more prestigious than the Olympics. And so that need is never going to go away. And I've had like an Olympian, Lucy Davis, who won a silver medal at the Olympics in 2016 or And she just told me to find my place. But also, a lot of equestrians, whether it's an Olympian like Lucy or someone in France who is trained over the years and is now a professional rider to develop young horses. And then once the young horse is developed, they pass the horse over to the professional Grand Prix rider who competes the horses at an older age. And then hopefully, maybe go to Olympics or equestrian games and things like that. But basically, funding the horses yourself and owning your own horses and being in the sport with full agency is the dream. So in a way, even though I'm not professional rider for the young horses or I'm not at the Olympics, I'm still living in the sport with some ideal that is shared throughout the whole sport because I make art and the art I just use for the horses rather than for like myself.
When you say for the horses, you mean in terms of the,
Like
developing them, or
yeah, in terms of sustaining the horses.
oh, okay, cool. Well, that's a big thing because I mean that you told me one time ago that horses and their owner or rider becomes one at one point in time, that they start to think almost as one. And when you're riding a horse, you could even just look your eyes a certain way and the horse know where you want to go with no adjustments and make the adjustments. Is that part of the development you're speaking of, or is it a different?
Well, that's just horseback riding.
Cool. Cool. So, if other young people wanted to get involved in horseback riding or into art, what would be the road that they should take, or they could take?
Well, I suppose it depends where they are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, people that are artists kind of were always artists, and people who ride horses, once they meet a horse, they kind of never want to leave. So, those are just two very, um, I suppose, spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
sports or life practices that it isn't a set grid or rubric for how to do it. So,
Is
or to
that
become it, like once you just, it's not like you want to decide to go to be a doctor. It just has to be your passion, and you can't really manufacture a passion.
okay? So basically, okay, for so the spirit of writing and the like is in essence critical for you to be successful at it. Is that what I'm hearing you to say?
Right, because they're not machines.
Ah, okay. So not like dribbling a basketball, the ball will go where you want it to go, and so forth. You got to become you, and the animal have to become one.
Right.
So
So, I mean, you have to know the mechanics of the horse and how their anatomy is. And there's some science, but it's just feeling and rhythm. It's more like dance.
yeah. So like, how many people in the Bahamas ride, and how many have gone on to higher levels of riding internationally?
Well, I suppose there's a few hundred people riding in the Bahamas. I'm not sure. But right now, Millie Vlasov is at the highest level.
Okay.
for the Bahamas so far that she's jumping 1.45 m and Grand Prix at the 2-star level, and the Grand Prix go up to 5-star. But really, even with 5 stars, there should be a 6-star for the top 10 in the
Okay.
world. So Millie is at the top for like young amateurs or older junior riders, but um, they're still meter 60, which is what the Olympics is set at. So the
Mm-hmm.
jump from meter 45 to meter 60 takes a lot of resources and a huge team.
Yeah, and we don't have any of that in the Bahamas, as I remember. So at some point, I guess it would be good for persons to go foreign. So would that be something that if the private or the public sector wanted to invest in, that will help the jumpers and the in particular more so than the dressage riders?
Well, it's dressage and jumping that they still need sponsors and they still need owners and trainers. It's a whole team of people.
Right. So you did a lot of that by being in the industry, in the sector, and without these facilities and so forth, and you still had that passion to continue to move on. What was it that caused you to have that passion, or what drove that passion more so than what caused it?
Well, I mean, I had people, and farms and horses. It's just a matter of scale that the Olympics is on such a high scale
Mm-hmm.
compared to juniors or amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
So I had Camperdown and Judy Pinder at Camperdown
Mm-hmm.
and um, Erica Madeley from Mariposa Stables and Robin Lee Ogilvy. And we all went to Carriage Hill Farms in 2006 for a summer competition at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And Jane Fennessy was there as she's the owner of the farm, and she was in the kitchen as well and at the rings and at the barn, and she was doing a whole lot of different responsibilities. And but I really connected with her, and then I never left the farm at Carriage Hill, and I went back 2007 and 2008 and 2009 until 2011 and then 2012. But then I went to art school in 2013 until 2020. And so I finally went back to Carriage Hill in 2021, and I'm still with Carriage Hill now. And through Carriage Hill, I got connected with Payo Equestrian in Paris, in France. And so this summer and last summer, I spent horseback riding in France with our partners and friends. And a lot of Olympians train at the stables in France where I ride throughout the summer, and they come in on their way
Mm-hmm.
to their championships to let the horses rest and train and things like that. So the people that I'm around or the environment has experience with the top level of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
But even within that environment, it's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport. So as an individual, you have to have really super top horses, and you have to have good results, and then you get nominated by the chef to keep or chosen to be on the championship teams to go to Olympics. And
Mm-hmm.
but the Bahamas, we got um, I included in the International Equestrian Federation or FEI
Mm-hmm.
because of the work that the stables in the Bahamas were doing, like at Mariposa Stables in Camperdown, and all the parents and trainers involved that did that. And Marky Davis, who trains with Ian Miller in Canada, or Captain Canada, he rides the medium tours up as the in the FEI competition, the same as Millie Vlasov rides the high tours in FEI in France. So you have two people, and the team is 5 people, so it'll take some time to develop a team. If everyone gets to the level that is required for the World Equestrian Games or for the Olympics. Otherwise, everyone would just be individuals.
Right. Cool. Well, we'd like to thank the Honorable Pierre Deputes for giving you the opportunity to get started in the field, and then you worked up to all of the names that you called, and that was his barn at the Camperdown riding, and so forward. So, folks, you listen to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we're here with Dominique Knowles, and he's talking about how to be an impactful creative. And that's creative in the art space and on the equestrian arena platform. We'll take a break now, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Sammy's Chicken. There's nothing like it.
Behind every scoop, lick, and savor is a smile and memory being made or reminisce. Whether you're at work, out with family on a Sunday, or have friends visiting, flavor will meet expectations in our 32-ounce container for only $10 if you're having a special event as well. Exotic flavors ranging from soursop to Guinness is definitely worthwhile.
Welcome back to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. We're here with Dominique Knowles, my youngest son, and we're talking about how to be an impactful creative. Welcome back, Dom.
Thanks.
Welcome. So, as we were talking before the break about that process, and so when we look at success and being able to have impact, the impact could be as a result of the success that we have, then we could cause impact to happen on the world. I always know that there are 4 fundamental elements that go into having success, and that is setting our goals, identifying the sacrifices that we are willing to make, selecting mentors, and developing a game plan. Well, for you, no, the first 2 was never a challenge. setting goals and identifying sacrifices. You are very disciplined, focused, passionate about that whole process, and so forth. So, but tell us now, how did you get from to keep raising up to the next level? Because when you were here last, you were just basically getting your feet wet and navigating your personal space as a graduate, so forth. And then now you were moving on into that space. And so now you are traveling all over the world, being exhibited. People are liking your work, buying your work, all kind of stuff. And then you're still in your horse space, being able to continue what you started when you were about 5 or thereabouts with your love and passion for animals. So were you able to find mentors in that process to help you along the way?
Well, my teachers from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, they've been there since 2013, and
Okay.
I'm still with them now, even though I'm not in school. We still go to each other's exhibitions and support each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like Michelle well, I had the whole school, but Michelle Grabner and Galen Gerber, Mari
You say you had the whole school?
well, basically the whole painting department I worked with, because I was there for
Okay.
like 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so before art school, I was with John Cox in 2012, and he gave me space in his studio to paint, and that was between high school and college. So then I did a group show with Toby Lone and Kendall Hanna.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how come when I went to art school, I was able to just blend with the community.
Cool. And so would you say that that is key, being able to have those mentors and added to your portfolio to help you to be successful in your studies?
Well, with art, it's not always about success. It's just about whatever your vision is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll have to be able to express it in the way that you wanted to express it, right? And sometimes you have to have people help you develop yourself to be able to express how you want to express, because some things don't come across the way you wanted to come across, and so forth. So that's what I'm referring to.
Well, Arnold Kemp, who is from the Bahamas and was the dean of graduate studies when I was at SAIC during grad school, he helped me get into grad school at the Institute with a full scholarship. And he came to my show in New York at Chapter in the spring, which is really a great treat.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the show, Dan Berger, who was one of the leading HIV specialists in the 80s and 90s, based in Chicago with his gallery Iceberg Project and his art collection, and he's on the board of the MCA. He gave me an internship between undergrad and grad school at his gallery, and so that really helped me connect between undergrad and grad school. And he also was there at the show and brought his gallery that he works with in New York along to see the show, and I'm friends with his gallery as well in New York. So,
yeah. And so these persons, artists and the like, who are acclaimed in their own, like reaching out to help you. Do you help others yourself?
Well, I would hope so. People say so, but I don't know.
Okay, so it's not like a formal thing where somebody would run to you all the time and say, "Hey, Dom, what about this?" Blah blah blah, stuff like that.
Well, Clarice Tavares, she's a collector of mine, and she's based in Milan, Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I connected with her after grad school. So you really need these collectors, even if it's just one or two people that are really invested in getting your work into museums or these public collections. And they also help you out as a person and give you advice on how to be a person in the world through your different stages. So they become mentors as well.
Yeah.
More so than artists, more so than art collectors that are just buying work for their private collection and you never see it ever again. The collectors that help you get museum exhibitions or public discourse would help you be a part of art history is the goal for one part of the art world,
Right.
but not for the full thing, of course.
Cool. And so then the last step of the success, 4 steps would be to develop a game plan. And so from what I see over the last year, 6 months to a year, you have now have a circuit, I call it. Maybe, I don't know how it was developed. You said it might have been by following the horses, but basically you go between New York, Florida, France, a couple of countries in Europe. Is there more to developing a game plan than following the horses by accident or by default? Did you have to do anything specific to put yourself in a position to be able to meet all of these people and have your work be displayed at these, so for them to take a liking to you and then to invite you to display your work at the different exhibits?
No, I just think an artist has a right to a private life and to live in a place that they want to live in, not necessarily have studio visits every day and live in an art city and be totally exposed all the time and open to every invite that people want to come and talk to you in your studio, which is supposed to be your private space. And it's the only space that an artist has full agency over. So I choose to live with the horses and I move with the horses. And so it's just by chance that for 2 years straight, all the exhibitions I had in Europe was during the time I had the horse in Europe, and the exhibitions I had in the States were during the time I had the horse in the States. So I got lucky, but that's also just how people and animals in the world moves, is that in the summer they move to cooler climates and they have all their culture and sports and everything. And then in the winter they move to a warmer climate.
Ms. Iris Knowles is saying, very interesting. I would like to hear more about how to go about having a show in city after city as you just did in the 6-month period.
That happens this year and last year because people saw the artwork in one city in the beginning, like let's say the Green Gallery. And so they want to share it. So for example, my video Talakwa was first screened at the Green Gallery, and then it went to various others in Munich, Germany, the following year in 2020. And Andrea Lassoni, who's a curator and from Italy, and he showed the work, a part of his film platform called Vidrome, which is a collective of film enthusiasts and curators and makers and writers and critics who curate films online over the years, and every month or season there's a new video by a new artist. And I had the Christmas special, which is supposed to close out the year and be like a beacon for all of the films over the year that they screened. So from there, everyone just keeps inviting me to screen this film because they saw it at Vidrome. And so that film has been screened for like 4 years straight now.
Wow.
And this winter at White Columns in New York, Mary Manning is the curator, and Mary Manning curated the exhibition based on work that Mary has seen over the past year in New York. And Mary saw my painting at Andrew Krapp's gallery in New York in 2020. And so that was in the show and New York again this year.
Yeah. So when we look at those, all of the showings though, I can't just draw something and pick up and it gets exhibited at an art gallery. So there has to be some draw to it that was developed in the process, right? Which I would think that it's either your personality or it's your work itself or people that you got connected to be able to be cheerleaders for you and the like, that would help get your work exposed to people so that they can see it, and so forth. So is that part of the process that would have happened for you?
Well, I suppose you can have a painting or a drawing or a video, but every painting doesn't mean it's art, and every video doesn't mean it's cinema. So you can't really control relationships that people have with art or cinema. You can't control their experiences. It's the same as with music.
Yeah, I guess so at some point. So DJ Legend talking about music here. He's saying, which art show city on your world tour was your favorite and why? Too many?
No, but my favorite cities are always just cities that are like Paris. So Milan I like because it feels like Paris, but the Bahamas at the same time because of the climate, and Italy. But New York I like sometimes, like after COVID, when the cafes were in the street, because it was like Paris. So basically, I don't think that's a genuine relationship, but Paris is the best city in the world. Like the last day I was in Paris on Friday, they had, this film art house cinema called the Shampoo. And in one evening, they had 3 films by legendary filmmakers back to back to back. So I could have been in this theater for like 6 hours or more. And you don't get that in other cities. Like other cities has film theaters dedicated to films made by artists, but the program isn't as deep as it is in Paris. So I was in Italy and I wanted to see an Italian film by like Pasolini and in black and white, but I couldn't find any, at least in the city I was looking at. And the week I was there. But in Italy they had films that were from the Venice Film Festival and like current new films that were made by artists or French films. But in Paris you have Japanese cinema and Italian cinema and European, like Norwegian films and films from Iceland, all in one night in one theater. So I think that's my favorite city. And then the horse is just 20-minute train ride from the theater. So that's my favorite in the world.
Yeah, that makes you be in dog heaven or horse heaven, as you might say it. Yeah. And so, yes. So Val McInnes says that listening in Halifax, Canada, all the way up there. Interesting, Dom. Yeah, that's your Grammy best friend.
I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just check and let you know that. Thank you kindly, and Val, for tuning in, and all of the people up there in Canada. Awesome stuff. So, Dom, when we look at what you said so far, and I know you played down the impact of people and the networking and the like, but you have a huge base of support, from what I could tell. Some of it through social media and some of it otherwise. And what would you say over the last couple of years, or last year in particular, have you felt that they would have helped you the most with in order to advance your career? It don't have to be the most, just something that they help you with, what that people could look forward to when a young person who is doing this for the first time doesn't understand the whole process and learning from them. What could they learn from your experience?
Well, I suppose
that you could share with them.
The people, they always gave me space. Like they gave me spaces to work in or to exhibit in, and the time to have that exhibition up. Even if I ask or if they ask, if I want to do a show, I just would ask someone and things like that. So people have been very generous with giving me their space and their time.
Cool. Well, that's saying something, because people don't normally just give things to people, right? And so obviously you have a vibe or attraction that inspires people to do those things. And so maybe that's one of the things people need to develop as they progressing towards their goal is that, as they call it, the laws of attraction. To get people to do what they need to do. So,
I know, but it has to be genuine. It can't be like self-aware.
Oh, yes. For most, genuine will then come from the things that you do as yourself, and what makes you, that you do to make you, right? And so whether it's reading, whether it's studying on YouTube or wherever you study, or all those things. And then what comes out is what people can get attracted to. Like we say in the beginning, we say what we think we become, etc. Then we go forward from that. Excuse me. So when we look at all that is come across in order this process to do, you would have had some level of transformation at different steps to go from a small child, hardly able to get on a horse, all the way up to this big grown man, exhibiting all around the world. Who would be some of the people who would have been outside of your school environment, etc., that would have assisted you in getting through this process?
Well, besides family,
Well, it could be some family members too, if you.
well, George Mankey, my grandfather, is one who bought me Taz, and you took care of Taz when George left, and you know, my family and brothers and my Dev and my mom and everyone, my grandma, who always took me to practice.
Mm-hmm.
So they helped me show up. And Robin Lee was there as well, and she isn't my trainer, but she lent me her horse. But she was as generous at the farm as my other trainers. Because at the stables you have like, they call it like show moms for like the pony kids.
Okay.
And the teenagers. And so she was like your horse mom. Because a lot of these riders have families that are a part of the horse world for generations, and that's mostly how it is in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Europeans who are under 30 or under 25 have parents that went to Olympics multiple times in the World Equestrian Games. And so you have like Harry Charles in Great Britain, who is, under 25, and he's number 14 in the world because his father, Peter Charles, gives him all of the answers and, has the resources to have the top super horses. But Harry is also super talented and can absorb all of that information and handle the pressure and everything. So there's a few other riders, well, a lot of other riders in Europe and other countries like Germany and everything like that, who are basically continuing on the legacy of their family. And they got to do it that way because they also have fields full of young horses. And not all of the young horses are going to be top super horses, but it's more farm-like in Europe. Whereas in the US, it's this client industry and it's become like a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And the training and the business is run based off of having everyday people become equestrians and then become amateurs.
Yeah. And
And
so
in the US, they don't produce horses as much as Europe because of a host of reasons that I'm not in the breeding world to know exactly why. But I find that in the US, the farms that have family generations and young horses and breeding, they may not be billionaires, but they have knowledge and they pass that knowledge on. And they have this sensibility, and that is how come they get to the top that they can, at their level, that they can get to. Compared to, like the pharmaceutical billionaires in New York or Bruce Springsteen and his family, Jessica Springsteen, and, they go to Olympics and things when they're in their 20s as well. But and, like Mayor Bloomberg's daughter, Georgina, and Bill Gates' daughter, Jennifer Gates, they sponsor other riders with horses and as well. And so even though they get to the top of the sport and they have enough resources that they change the sport multiple times, I believe, so that the curve is like their ballpark, which has made the sport super unattainable, even for the families that have generational knowledge but aren't, like super billionaires. So it's a very complex sport, and different countries has different systems.
Well, that's why I take off my hat to persons like yourself and the other Bahamians that you listed who have gone off and doing well in the sport. And you being a champion at one point in Florida. So, because we don't have those resources, and hopefully at some point our governments and private sectors here will build those type of facilities, and as a part of the sports in paradise and so forth programs that we could bring the whole equestrian space here, and maybe we'll have a regionals here in the Bahamas. We could develop facilities to do all of that.
So at the moment, I have a horse named Hewing, and he's 5 years old. I got him as a 4-year-old, and I got him from France, from Payer Equestrian and Carriageville Farms. Connected me with them, and he was in the field, and so I really connected with this baby horse and got him. And so I have to spend the next, let's say, 5-6 years developing him. And that's the way that I have an position in the sport, is not necessarily being like at the championships or doing the Olympics, but connecting with the young horse and being patient and teaching the young horse. And, competing is its own like skill, and even the competitors need their rider, their groom that exercises the horses on the gymnastics and the dressage flat work. And I really just enjoy being at home with the horse at the farm and just teaching the horse basic horseback riding art and doing dressage and flat work and gymnastics instead of competing right now.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's a
I
sort of
just
mentoring.
found my position in the sport.
That's a sort of mentoring, and that mentoring has turned around, and I can say that I have seen growth in you as a result of, and I guess you could attest it to that. So, and Val is saying here, do you have to be multilingual to participate in these places that you visit and the foreign films?
I suppose, but I guess in every country or every language, you just have to know greetings and thank you and please and things like that.
Read body
For-
language and so forth.
You need to know like hello and thank you and just basic. And then I studied French, but I'm not Francophone, so.
Cool. It was interesting, the conversation, Dom. Is there anything that you would like to say out there to all your fans and friends and the like, public, who might be inspiring to either of the two streams that our independent country was allow a lot of us to go on and do? Because before independence, some of us might not have even gotten the opportunity to do these things.
Well, besides owners and sponsors for the teenagers who ride horses in the Bahamas, I think with art, it would just be really useful if the Bahamas had an art high school, and a lot of the artists can be outside of the rigid environment that the high schools here have, and can be in environments that allow them to perform at the levels that other teenagers have around the world with their art high schools. The same way that you have international schools in the Bahamas, you need an art high school.
Cool. That's something we could look into. Maybe inspire the government of the day. They say it's a new day, so we could have a new school, new type of school.
Or I guess it could be private.
Well, that too. Yes. And we do have a whole community that has almost 2% of the billionaires around the world living in it. So maybe we could touch into that. Cool. So anything else you want to say to
No, just thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you for coming on and sharing with us what has happened since you've been last on and growing from strength to strength. And I know you've been very modest with a lot of things that you said, but we want to continue to encourage you to continue to advance and progress as you go, because there are a lot of people watching. You might know that they're watching, but people watch. Because people stop me and tell me about this and that. They know more about you than I know.
Well, it's just maybe modest because it's just stuff that happens, not necessarily the vision of an art practice when you're dead and it's in history or something.
Cool. Awesome. But folks out there on social media, thank you for watching. If you want to watch like this, make sure to subscribe and like the show. Also, watch more videos that we have posted to be able to go. But it sign says, proud of you, Dom. That's TS. And so forth. And we look forward to Madam Producer. Thank you for being with us and taking care of everything today. Good evening.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242